Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for joining today. Our guests today are Elias Dabbas and Jérémy. Elias is the author and maintainer of advertools, an open source library for various online marketing tasks in SEO, SEM, text analysis, and social media. He's also the author of the book Interactive Dashboards and Data Apps with Plotly and Dash. Our other guest, Jérémy, is the CEO of naas.ai, a Jupyter Notebooks as a service platform, which is democratizing data science with notebooks, low-code formulas, and templates. Thanks for joining, and over to you, Elias.
Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for joining. So yeah, let's get started with the topic of today. Let me give you a quick plan of what we're going to be doing. We'll just get an intro on Windsor's data sources and destinations. I'll show you a very quick overview of the dashboard that we're going to be working on and building, so you know what we were building towards. Then we're going to be talking about how to make HTTP requests in Python so we can get the data that we want and shape it in the format that we want. And once we have the data in the right format, we're going to be ready to create an interactive features and graphs and all kinds of interactivity with Plotly's Dash framework. And then we're going to be ready to put everything together, how to deploy it and run it, and show you how to do it on naas.ai. Okay. So just to give you a quick overview, if you're not familiar with Windsor.ai, it's a data platform, mostly for marketing data, with a very simple structure. You can think of it as sources, destinations, and templates. So there's many sources of data that can be imported to various destinations. So you can, as you can see here, you can say, I want LinkedIn data, Google ads, and Facebook ads, and I want them in an Excel sheet or in Google Data Studio or whatever. And there are a few templates that you can also make use of to get some insights and so on. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using Python in a programmatic way, and we're going to build an interactive dashboard with the data over here, so you can see how this can be used. Okay. So let's start by taking a very quick overview of the dashboard that we are going to be building by the end of this webinar. So we made sure that it's a very simple dashboard, just to illustrate the features that can be done. So basically, you select a date range, and you select one of the fields that are available. So let's say campaigns and clicks, and you're ready to submit. But before that, you need an API key, which is basically your login password if you want. So let's see how to get this API key. So you can go to windsor.ai and log in here. And the first thing you'll see, the first thing you see is all the data sources that you can utilize. So let's say I want Google Ads, and now I get to sign in with Google and go through the process and easily connect with and get the data to the destinations that we want. So here's a preview of an interactive way of getting various data from various sources and using various fields. I'm going to go to Python, and anything interactive you see over here is converted to a URL for you over here. So we'll see how to use this, but for now I'm going to copy the API key. Okay, I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to paste the key over here. Now I'm ready to submit and make my first request. So as you can see here, we have the data for campaign, clicks, and date. So every campaign for every date and how many clicks it generated. So it's a very simple report. The chart is very basic because we have just one day. So we can easily make it a bit more interesting, make it for 7 days and say, okay, let me get the sessions and let me get the spend for 7 days, and hit submit again. And as you can see here, now the dropdown gets dynamically changed to show the various metrics that we have. So I can change sessions and see the sessions in the last 7 days, or the spend. And obviously my data set here has expanded a lot, and I can easily export it to an Excel sheet and if I want to do more analysis. Okay, so very, very simple dashboard, just to give an overview what we are going to be working towards. So the way we make requests, HTTP requests in Python is, there are various ways, of course, in many libraries. One of the most popular libraries is called requests, which handles HTTP requests for us. It's very simple. You say requests.get, and then you give it a URL, and it sends the URL, a request to that URL. You can optionally give it parameters to enhance your request, and it handles everything from redirects and handling errors and all the kinds of stuff. So basically, we can have an example URL over here, and params are basically a Python dictionary, and we can create a response object by running requests.get. We use this URL and we use these params, and now we have a response object. And we can query this object and say response.url, for example, and we see the exact URL that was used in this request. And as you can see here, we have special characters and escapes and URL safe letters and numbers done for us. You can check the status code, and as you can see, it's 200. So this was a successful response. Now, this is a real example. Using Windsor data. So we have an API key variable over here, and we have a bunch of field options that we can use from. There's many more, and it depends on the API that you're using, but this is just a simple example. So the base URL here is connectors.windsor.ai/all, and we create a params dictionary with the API key. The date preset is last 7 days, and the fields that we want, account name and clicks. It's a very simple request. We run it the same way. Windsor response is equal to request.get, again, URL and params. And a very interesting attribute of the response object is the JSON object. So when you run the JSON method, you get the response in a JSON format, which can very easily be converted into a data frame, as you can see here. And now we have a very nice, easily readable report that shows us how many clicks we got for the accounts that we requested by all the accounts that we have. This is the same thing. It's just a more elaborate example. We say 28 days, and we have more data. So for every combination of account name, campaign, and date, we have the clicks and spend, account name, campaign, date, clicks and spend all through all this period. So this is basically, when we convert it to a data frame, we get 281 rows and 5 columns. So we have the dimensions over here, if you're familiar with Google Analytics terminology, and these are the metrics that we're using. And now that we have the data in the format that we want, it's now very easy to slice and dice and take the weeks, take the day of the week, and filter whichever way we want. Now we're done with getting the data, and we are ready now to make it interactive and to visualize it and try to understand it. So once this data is received in the format that we want, we're going to create this dashboard, and we're going to be using Dash, which is a framework for creating interactive dashboards, data apps, data visualization, and all kinds of front-end development. You can do any kind of front-end development with it. So this is a very basic application, the simplest application you can do. As you can see over here, we have a bunch of imports. You create an app with one line of code, Jupyter Dash, or you can just say Dash for the normal kind, and you create the app layout. Now the app layout is what is visible by users. It's basically a div, HTML div, and you give it a list of objects that you hear, and we just gave it an H1 element, hello world. And to run the app, you just say app.runServer. That's it. So with 3 commands, we create an app, its layout, and we run it. And now we get a URL over here, which we can click and see that we have the app running. We have a mini website that's functioning, and it's fully running. Now, there's an option to run this within Jupyter Notebooks, you can just say mode equals inline. As you can see over here, this is the same code, and you would have the interactive app right underneath the code cell. So you can have an interactive dashboard within your Jupyter notebook. You might want to share it with your colleagues or for yourself. This is another option. So let's take a look at other elements that we can use in other components. So the two main types of components are HTML components and the dash core components. The HTML components are basically all the HTML tags that are available. So you just, as you can see over here, HTML.h2 will create an h2 element. BR would create a break. Any kind of HTML code that you want, you just put it there with the parameters and it will be converted for you. Now, the other interesting type of components is the interactive components that we have in dash core components. And as you can see here, we can say dcc.input. DCC is dash core components. Input, you just get an input field for users to fill out. Text area, you get a text area. Date picker, single. So it's very easy. You just declare element by element, and they're displayed for you on the page, and it's very easy. Like it's as simple as that. Now, this is mainly just what is visible to users. There's no interactivity here. This is just putting stuff on the screen. And now we're going to see how to make this interactive. We created a very, very simple, dashboard, which takes an input from the user, a number, and we're giving the user a set of numbers to choose from. We're using the slider. And as an output for this input, we are calculating in the background, we're going to be calculating something for the user and displaying it over here. Very simple app, of course. So if the user selects 1, in the background, we're going to be doing something, and we're going to output that result, and we're going to say the square root of input, which is the number 1, is 1, which is the square root of 1. And if you choose 2, 3, the same thing happens. So now let's just go back 1 or 2 steps and forget about the interactivity. And we're going to create a very simple Python function, which we're going to call it square root. And it takes as an input number, any number you want, and returns this string as a template. It says the square root of number is square root of number. So if you say square root of 15, you get it as an output, you get the square root of 15 is 3.872, 235, and so on. Now, this is a Python function that someone who is coding can use. We are going to create this interactivity for the user. We're going to make them use this function, but without touching the code. So the user is going to input number by selecting it over here. In the background, we're going to run this function, and the output is going to be this output over here. Okay. Don't worry about the details over here. I know it's a bit of a busy slide. The important thing is that this square root function, we just created it, and I think you know what it is. Those elements, we've seen how they're created. You just say, I want an H2 here, and then a slider and a div. And what remains to do is just give these arbitrary IDs, just give them names. So this, I'm going to call it number slider. And this I'm going to call it square root result. And we just decide that this is going to be the input, and this is going to be the output, and the function runs. And so dynamically, every time the user selects a number from here, it takes this input, does the calculation, and gives it as an output over here. So don't worry about the details if that's not clear. You can easily check the documentation, but just to show you that the interactivity is very straightforward like this, and it can be much more complex if you want to. So the next phase is themes and the layout of the app. And once you have more than one component, you have columns and so on, it becomes difficult to manage this. And this can be handled very nicely for us by another package called Dash Bootstrap Components. And it contains a bunch of themes that you can choose from, very nice color themes, dark stuff, light stuff, whatever you want, and you can customize it, of course. Most importantly, it helps us a lot with the layout. So if you have columns, if you want to put things next to each other, you want a large column here and a thin one here, it's very easy to do this, and it looks much nicer with a theme and fonts that are working well together, that have been designed previously. So once we create this, we're going to run this on NAS. If you don't know NAS, it's NAAS, Jupyter Notebook as a Service, which is as Matthias mentioned at the beginning, it's a service online where you log in. You basically get the same environment you do as with Jupyter Lab if you're working on your laptop locally. So this is my account. I log in, I see my notebooks, I can work online with all the benefits of saving your work there, keeping it running, and so on. There's also an extensive repository of awesome notebooks. There's so many different things to choose from, pipelines and so on, that you can just copy and use. And it's also a framework for building data apps and pipelines, and we can discuss it more if you're interested, and Jérémy can help us with this, of course. So this is the app running in my within my environment. It can also run in public, as we saw at the beginning. You've seen this design. This is an example of the interactive chart and the table that we've done. And here are a few other resources that you might find useful. This is the notebook on the awesome notebooks of NAS. So this is the code basically of this dashboard that we created. You can easily copy it and take it and do whatever you want. There's a nice feature over here. If you click on open in NAS, did I click? Yes, I did. It will import this notebook and put it inside your environment, so you can start working on it immediately, as you can see here on the server, and you can start running the code. Sorry. The live app, we saw it, and here's a link to a few other things if you're interested. Windsor, Dash documentation. There's a book about Dash that I wrote, and the NAS website. And yeah, thank you very much. That's it for here. If you have any questions or thoughts, please go ahead.
That was pretty efficient, Elias. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, thanks very much.
Yes, Mahmoud mentions a very good point. He says 99% of the work is about getting the data in the right format, and it's anyone who works with data knows that. Yes, you see these two charts here, but there's like a huge amount of work in just formatting the data and obtaining it and getting it in the right format. And
that's true.
Thank you, Orfe and Santiago.
I think, Elias, the really cool stuff to stop on is to, I mean, for me, I think the ability for Dash to follow the Bootstrap framework and to create really responsive and native apps on the go is really something that is super, super useful. And I found that other libraries don't have this ability to get as responsive, as flexible as Dash. I've used Streamlit and all those different other libraries, but I think it is a point to mention that if you get started into Python and you want to build your first data apps, you will literally be like building a software, like building an actual app, because you have all this power of Bootstrap component and everything. So right now, what you showed, Elias, was a really, really simple thing. Maybe you can go really crazy on all those different burger menus, filters, and background and layouts. And this can really be like, and feel like an internal app that you will build out of Python. You don't need to learn JavaScript, HTML, and all that, and even CSS. You can just build it out of Python. And this is very powerful to me.
Yeah, that's very good to mention and emphasize, because I remember starting Dash before there was Dash Bootstrap components, and it was painful to say margin left 7%, margin right, and then it goes wrong, and you have a smaller screen that crashes, and it's like very painful. And another point that you mentioned is that this app is completely JavaScript. but you don't need to know any JavaScript. You can just
Nope.
write it in Python, and everything gets rendered and done in a nice and easy way. So
yeah, that's the beauty, for sure. There is another question. Do we also need to schedule the code with NAS? You don't actually. When you run the notebook will stay up for an hour if you're on the free plan, and you will access it to the URL that Elias showed you. If you want to deploy it to a specific service, this is another kind of feature. You need to contact us to do that, to expose it to the world. It's a bit like it's a dedicated space that we create outside of your notebook instance. So just contact us if you